Today we are talking about mobility interventions that we can do, and specifically we're going to be focusing on these guys, the cups. So there's a couple reasons that you need mobility interventions as a gamer specifically. Go ahead and show us which muscles are going to get really tight as a gamer.
So most commonly, we have our upper traps. These get really stiff. We also have our pec minor. Starts here, attaches at the ribs, rounds you forward like this. We sit like this, hold it for extended periods of time, cause it to be stiff. And so we want to be able to relax those muscles. And there's a lot of the things that we do as physical therapists, whether it be static stretching, soft tissue massage, sustained pressure, all these other techniques. But today, like Elliot said, we're focusing primarily on cupping as a technique to relax the muscle. Potentially work on some exercises on top of that so that we can sustain better movement and sustain better posture.
Right. So a lot of times you'll see gamers get really tight muscles up here in the neck, and then a lot of times back here as well, and then in the pecs. So we can focus on any of these areas to kind of increase the mobility, so we can do things like stretch, we can do things like cupping, we can do things like foam rolling, deep tissue massage. All of these different things can be used to decrease the tension in those muscles. So without further ado, let's get into it a little bit here.
All right, guys, I'm taking my shirt off.
All right, as you can see, Mr. Matt here already has some cups on his back. So I'm not gonna go too crazy on those spots where there's already some bruising, but we're gonna try to get the upper traps here. And we're also gonna cup his chest. We're gonna cup all through here.
So for this first section, we're going to be demonstrating cupping for the pec major, specifically my left pec major. You can see here as I lie down on my back that Elliot is describing that the pec has two major heads. It has the clavicular head as well as the sternal head, and those are going to be the areas where he's actually going to be applying those cups. And very commonly, because of our rounded shoulder position, this pec muscle can get stiff, it can get tight, and it can actually inhibit or prevent some of the muscles from behind our shoulder, in our rotator cuff and our mid-trap, to work well. So we want to address this tightness and potential inhibition so I can have better overall shoulder function, and for you, minimize your risk of developing any shoulder issues or neck issues, and sometimes even wrist issues when it comes to gaming because of the tissue connections between the shoulder all the way down to the forearm. So now Elliot is going to be demonstrating the pin and stretch technique with the cup, and is going to be moving my arm through a shortened range of motion and then lengthening the muscle into external rotation, into flexion, into abduction, because the action of the muscle, as I'll describe later, is horizontal adduction as well as internal rotation of the shoulder. And so if we move the shoulder in those opposite movements, we can stretch the muscle, especially if the cup is taking up the muscle within it through that vacuum or through that suction, and pinning it there while we lengthen it through this passive stretch or passive movement of the arm. How this technique will feel for you will vary depending on how the practitioner moves your arm, how much actual pressure or suction is utilized within each of the cups at various points along the chest, and the overall duration of the therapeutic cupping.
We didn't demonstrate pre-test, post-test, but if I lift my arms up, I can instantly feel. You guys might be able to notice maybe a difference between right to left. I can actually get a little further going left side now. Same thing with external rotation. Move my left shoulder back a little further, and it's because we've released some of the restrictions here in the pec, because the pec allows us to bring our arm in this way. It allows us to rotate our arm internally here. So if we do the opposite of movement, it can restrict that movement if it's tight, right? And so if we're sitting like this all the time, you better believe it's gonna stiffen up. Now I feel great. Now I have this 4-cup pattern here. So you guys can see my range of motion here. I'm tucking my chin. I'm gonna do left, here the left shoulder. You guys can see how far my head goes. And then I'm gonna do the other side. And then we're gonna retest. We're gonna show you guys after we actually do the manual technique what happens to the range of motion if I have some tightness here, how that affects my overall level of mobility. So stay tuned.
All the way down to here and kind of in through this area. So it just focuses on this upper portion. The whole trap is like a big kite-shaped muscle that goes from all the way down. We're not going to focus on the lower fibers so much. We're going to just on these upper fibers right here. So we're going to start right there, right at that junction between the shoulder and the neck. come down to its attachment on what's called the acromion. Focus on some of these fibers that come down over the shoulder blade like this. Side bend away and rotate towards is really going to get the most stretch on that upper trap area there.
We did the right side, right, as you guys can see. And if I tuck my chin, hopefully you guys can see that there was a pretty wide increase. I feel like I can get a lot further. That is cupping. That is our introductory stream and demonstration for cupping. So if you guys have questions, throw it in the chat right now. Let us know.
Okay, is it painful? It's definitely not comfortable. Especially if you're super restricted, cupping can be pretty painful. Like for some people.
So let me talk from the patient perspective. It was definitely, not enjoyable. It was definitely a little bit painful, and I would say as a practitioner, you have to scale the amount of suction based on the level of sensitivity, right? I can tolerate a lot more. I have a lot of mobility in general, so I can tolerate the 6 to 7 pumps that...
Yeah, I can pull any pumps with Matt,
Yeah.
but there's definitely people, so I'll do this for like patients that have had like knee replacements and stuff like that too, and usually kind of fresh out of surgery, they don't really tolerate this so well.
Right.
So 1 or 2 pumps is about all you're gonna get out of people like that. So obviously the more you pump, the more you're actually deforming the muscle, you're pulling it up into that cup, the more effective it's being at stretching both the muscle and the fascia. And the fascia is just kind of this like spiderwebby type lining of the muscles that it acts like a sheet that keeps all the muscles kind of where they're supposed to be, but that can get bound down and restricted too. So this kind of helps pull some of that apart and allows the muscles to slide a little bit looser in their tracts. But yeah, obviously the more you pump into that cup, the more intense it's going to be. At a certain point as well, you cap out. You can only get these so strong without having a industrial grade vacuum pulling on this. I've had finger stiffness and soreness for a year. What type of doctor should I visit, an orthopedist or a rheumatologist? I think talking to your orthopedist would probably be the first option.
I agree.
Rheumatologist, if you really are having like systemic inflammation issues, I would definitely think that an orthopedist would be able to tell you whether or not a rheumatologist is worth.
Right. Yeah, definitely orthopedist first. I agree in that. Most of the time, if you're within the age group of like 16 to like 40 or 50, it's less likely to be systemic. Although not to say that it's impossible, but it's most likely due to a matter of load and some of the things that we talk about on a frequent basis.
A lot of trouble with shoulder mobility due to being a side sleeper. I end up being folded inwards. Any general tips to avoid getting stiff? So being a side sleeper is very much like being a gamer. So I think Matt here is going to show you.
This is a really good question. This is a really, really good question, right? Because how we sleep impacts how much time we're spending in a certain position for how long? 8 hours, right? On average, 8 hours for our age group is what we should be targeting in terms of sleep. Right, so if you're sleeping on your side and you're in what we call 3/4 prone, right, maybe rolling forward a bit, you can see that my shoulder on the left will roll inward, as well as my shoulder on top, if I don't have something supporting here, can also roll inward, right? Just like this. And if you're holding it there for an extended period of time, it can lead to some stiffness, potentially, and it can irritate some tendons if it's in a position where it's actually creating some compressive stress at certain areas of your shoulder. So what we typically recommend is what, Elliot? How should we sleep?
I definitely recommend having a pillow between the knees. So you want to have this supported here. You want to have a pillow between the arms like this. You want everything to be in kind of a neutral position here. So it's okay if you have your arm up like this, but you don't want to be so folded inwards like this. So you definitely want to have enough support here that you're able to fill this entire area with a nice big pillow. So everything is. Also for the neck here, you want to make sure that the neck isn't too high like this, so you're not sleeping too high there. And you don't want to make sure it's too low like this, so you end up sleeping down like that. You want everything to be in a nice neutral position, including both of your arms, knees, and ankles.
So pillow between the knees, pillow beneath the arm. It could be here, or it could be in front, like one of those cuddle pillows. And then making sure that the head stays neutral. And so in general, that's how you can sleep in a better position on your side. But we also recommend, hey, maybe try starting out on your back. as well, because in general in the back there is less likelihood where you are closing your shoulders down and waking up sort of with that shoulder stiffness.
If you have tight pecs, though, sleeping on your back can actually cause both your arms to go numb, just because now you're stretching out those pec muscles that have all those nerves that run down through your arms.
Good point. So how do we address that? You can put pillows underneath your arms too to support that while you're working on that mobility with a physical therapist or on your own. Hey, I'm gonna stretch my pecs right before bed, and then I can see if it actually affects me. Because a lot of the times we get to a point where we're so stiff like this, and if we lie down, it's gonna stretch, it's gonna irritate those nerves. So we put something there. We bring the surface up to your arms. Okay, so it's individualized for everyone, but hopefully that gives you a better idea of how to approach it.
It's a really great question.
Yeah.
We need to make a whole video on just like how to sleep, especially as a gamer.
We will. And so that's how you can address sleeping, and then definitely some stretches, right? Like, again, stretching your pec, imagining there's a doorway here and then you're rotating out, right? Doing a lot of the exercises like this, if you can just open up your chest, turn your arm and thumb behind you and squeeze between your shoulder blades, and then bring it back in front of you. So if I'm demonstrating here from the side, yep, and then to camera 2, we see that, boom. Yeah, I'm opening up my chest so that it's doing the opposite of what we do so much, sitting and even sleeping on your side. We're making sure that we open it up. So hopefully that answers your question.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you need individualized coaching for your injuries, sleep, exercise, or nutrition, you can check out our Patreon. And of course, you can catch us live on YouTube or Twitch. Play more, hurt less.